This is where the noteworthy and interesting people of Kansas come to share their life stories and the lessons they've learned along the way. This week, we welcome the president of a prominent Kansas college who says higher education should be more than just facts and figures. Dr. Jon Gering believes that learning should be a community experience, and that fits right in with the founding philosophy of Bethel College in North Newton. It was founded on the principles of peace and social justice. Gering took the reins of Bethel College in 2018, 24 years after earning his undergraduate degree there. He went on to earn his master's and doctorate in ecology from Miami University in Ohio. Then it was off to Truman State University in Kirksville, Missouri, where Gering spent 16 years in teaching and leadership roles as head of the schools of science and mathematics. But now he is back in familiar territory, striving to guide Bethel College to even greater heights. Coming up, we'll talk about that, as well as why this Washington State native finds Kansas to be such an appealing place to live, work, and raise his family. Another interesting half hour is coming your way as we go one-on-one with Jon Gering. Hello, and thanks for joining us. I'm Victor Hogstrom. It's a pleasure to welcome Bethel College President Jon Gering to the program. Jon, it's wonderful to have you.
Thank you.
You graduated from Bethel College 24 years ago and left, and now you're back as president. How did that happen?
Victor, that's an excellent question. It wasn't something I anticipated doing in my career. I don't think any child wakes up and says, I'm going to be the president of a small college. And so the way that it happened was during the time I was at Truman State University as the Dean of Science and Math, and also as department chair, people kept coming to me and asking me to take on leadership positions. And sometimes you have to let the community of people around you inform your career. And it just so happened that I enjoyed doing the leadership responsibilities and tasks. I have had, of course, stayed in touch with Bethel College, communicated regularly with professors and other alumni. And so when the college underwent its last presidential search, they reached out to me. And through a long conversation with my wife and with friends and with mentors, I decided it was the right time to take the step into being a small college president. And I've enjoyed that, and it's been rewarding.
You were at the college and originally from Washington State. How did you end up at Bethel, and why Bethel?
Well, Bethel College has been in my family for a long time. I'm what is called a legacy student, so my parents are both graduates of the college. But during my growing up years in Ritzville, Washington, I didn't look at the college, and I didn't want to go there. In fact, I spent my first year at a community college. The academics weren't particularly challenging at the college I was at. I was getting a good education at the community college, but I wasn't gaining and growing as an individual like I thought I should. And so one weekend when I was home, there was a phone call, and I answered it, and on the other end was the football coach from Bethel College. And he said, Jon, what are you doing? And I said, well, not much, to be honest. And he said, do you want to come to Bethel and play football and get an education? And I said, sure, that sounds great. And he said, I'll see you in the fall.
Oh, wow.
And we hung up the phone. It may have been the easiest recruiting process ever for Coach Kent Rogers. And so at that time in the fall, I drove to Kansas from Washington State and met my roommate. And from that point onward, had excellent staff mentors and faculty mentors. So that's how I arrived at Bethel. Those were the circumstances.
So Bethel is a liberal arts college. How did that prepare you to become an ecologist? That is amazing.
Yeah, Bethel was the first school founded in the Mennonite Church in the United States. So we're affiliated with the Mennonite Church USA, and at the same time we have the mission of carrying out the liberal arts. And the liberal arts, when they're at their finest, what they do is teach you to think from a variety of angles, through a variety of lenses. And that's helpful because it allows you to be able to think outside normal paradigms. As an ecologist, and ecology is the study of the natural world, the economics of the natural world, so to speak. And nothing is simple in ecology. In fact, the most compelling part about ecology was not that it was a science in the same way that physics is a science or that mathematics is a science. You aren't always moving towards a proof. What you're doing is trying to untangle complexity. And it's at that intersection of untangling the complexity of the natural world where the thinking of the liberal arts that I was exposed to at Bethel was the most helpful.
So you're saying Bethel was at its finest when you were there? As a student, what is it today?
It's always been a real fine institution, okay. Both when I was there, although not because of me, because of the dedication of the faculty members and the staff members. It's been a place for nurturing hearts and minds from the very beginning. It's been a place where students can come from Washington State, where they can come from Oklahoma, from Texas, from 40 states, and probably a dozen international destinations. We have students who come there, and we do a fantastic job nurturing them and helping them grow intellectually, spiritually, and in their capacity to be employees.
Now, you have said that you believe that learning should be a community experience. How is that?
Well, on one hand, the learning that people most associate with colleges is that you're given your assignment and you go into the library and you crack open the book and you read by yourself. And that's fantastic. It's a one-on-one conversation with an author, right. And you get to learn about the author. But at the same time, that's a single voice. And my opinion and understanding of education has always been informed by being more multi-voiced. And that's true when you start to take a particular topic and you look at the scholarly work that has gone on. You're always encountering different perspectives on it. And so whether it's a community of scholars or a community of peers, what do you think about this particular topic? And you're likely to get different perspectives. And that's really important part of education in our modern society.
But that philosophy that you have fits right in with the founding philosophy of Bethel College, which is in North Newton here. It was founded on the principles of peace and social justice. Why? What is the backstory?
Peace and social justice are Mennonite themes in the Mennonite Church. Mennonites are one of the historic peace traditions, and we advocate for peacemaking and peace building across the world. When I was a teenager growing up and I was in my church, when I was in high school, I went through a series of choruses and discussions. This was in 1990, and what it led up to for me was registering as a conscientious objector to the Persian Gulf War. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's a long history of Mennonites in that role, being a conscientious objector or serving in positions in the military that don't require violence. There's also a long history of that in the Mennonite Church. As far as social justice, that also stems naturally from the Mennonites as a religion that's focused on the teachings of Jesus. So helping the poor and needy as an example. Doing service. The mission of Bethel College is preparing students for lives of meaningful work and service. And so the work is part of that, but that service is also important. For example, just 2 days ago, our men's soccer team held a clinic for young soccer players in the city of Newton. There were hundreds of kids there. It's a service to the community. Right. We've always taken students on international service trips or local service trips. Our social work department, in times of need, goes to particular states to help students. There's a concern about immigrants. And so there's deeply embedded in the fabric and history of the Mennonite denomination are calls for helping others and doing well by others.
You mentioned the word violence. Does that mean Mennonites do not go into war, even if they're in the military?
That has been the tradition, yeah, and the pattern.
How do you avoid that if you're assigned?
Well, part of the reason I registered as a conscience objector was that I was concerned that there would be a draft. And I knew at that point that if I was drafted that I wanted to serve in a role that didn't require violence.
Okay, so you met your wife at Bethel.
I did.
And you've been married?
We've been we've been married 24 years. Next year will be our 25th anniversary.
And you have 2 kids?
We have 3 children.
3 children.
A 16-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 10-year-old.
So they all live in North Newton. How did the college select North Newton to be its location?
That's a good question. Eventually, there was a series of smaller schools that were started, academies. One of them, for example, was in Halstead. One was near Gossel. Those 2 academies were really the precursors to Bethel College. And so the people who started it, which were people from the Mennonite church, they looked around for proper locations. Eventually, the way it got started was that some Mennonites and some business partners from Newton got together and said, let's build a college here. At the time, North Newton didn't really exist. The early pictures of the college have it sitting out on the prairie, alone. There's no trees for miles around. There's nothing for miles around. Eventually what happened was that there was a wagon trail that ran from Newton up to Bethel College. And the incorporation of North Newton as a city, oddly enough, is tied to the inclusion of sewer lines into Bethel College. And so the two were joined almost literally in that way. And so eventually, this is in 1887 when this is happening, eventually the city of North Newton became incorporated and Bethel College was also there.
So your primary field of study has been ecology. Does your faith ever get challenged by science?
Oh, sure, all the time.
Tell us how.
The two are always having a conversation with one another. Some people would find that threatening, but one of the main advantages of a liberal arts education is the ability to hold conflicting thoughts in your mind and work them out.
Share that conversation between the two.
Oh, I think as a scientist, one of the main ways they conflict is with the paradigm of evolution by natural selection, which is our explanatory framework in the world of biology for understanding the natural world. Obviously, that's in conflict with a creation story in Genesis,
right.
And the two are always at odds with one another.
Right.
As a biologist, I understand really well that the natural world is an evolved natural world. We could spend a whole show talking about the differences between a kind of a creation worldview and an evolutionary worldview, because there's lots of gradations in between there. So yes, they're always in conflict with one another constantly, and that's okay. We have to hold those two different ideas in conflict and work them out, both as individuals and as communities of people.
Right, and it takes a strong person to do that.
Well,
balanced person.
I thank Bethel College and my parents for that, for giving me the freedom to think and the courage to think, and that liberal arts education for saying there's one perspective, here's another perspective. Work on those. That's what an educated life is about.
Right, so true. So you're the new president of Bethel. You've been there a little over a year now. What is your vision for Bethel?
My vision for Bethel is that it becomes a place where we do three things really well. Two of them we do already. We're working on a third one. First, we do faith formation really well. All students have to take a course called Basic Issues in Faith and Life. The acronym we use is BIFL. And what that does is it requires them to develop a credo or a belief. And it's a course that uses religious texts, and students have to develop their belief. We call that faith formation, and that's part of our mission, because we want students to have, when they graduate, an owned and enacted faith. And both those terms are really important, especially the owned. That's one thing we do well. A second thing we do really well are the liberal arts. A variety of courses from a variety of different topics. Small classes where students and professors can interact with one another. A lot of alumni say, I learned from the professors, I learned equally as much sitting in my dorm room or sitting around a table with my peers. That's a really important part of a small college environment. And then the third thing we're doing is working on practical experiences in career pathways. One of the main promises of higher education for society is that students will graduate and get a job. That's an important, often unspoken commitment.
Right.
We do really well at that. Nursing, social work, business, all those programs produce graduates who are employable. What we're doing now is we're taking the next step and starting to build those experiences in career pathways into the curriculum. So we have students working in their academic disciplines as they go along. That's a long-term plan. It will take several years, and we're also doing it in such a way that students can get paid for it or get tuition reimbursement for it, because higher education has a student loan debt issue that we all have to deal with. Leaders of higher education need to be thinking about the amounts of student loan debt. Bethel's below the average. The average student loan debt is $28,500 nationwide for college graduates. We're lower than that at 23. We want to continue to go lower.
So what could colleges do? You're lower, or one among the lowest, but what could colleges do to help students not accumulate such high debt?
I think partnering with their business partners and corporate partners in the community to provide paying positions that dovetail with the curriculum.
Scholarships.
Yes, in a matter of speaking, scholarships or grants. Of course, we have generous donors who provide many scholarships to the college.
Right.
So those are all mechanisms.
Dr. Gering, several colleges and universities in central Kansas have been in existence for many, many years. But they seem to be small, not growing. What is your plan to grow Bethel into a much larger institution of higher learning?
You heard part of it. The practical experiences in career pathways is intended to make college more affordable. That's the first part. We have to address affordability issues. I don't know about the other small colleges in Kansas, but at Bethel, when students say they don't look at it, it's because they believe they can't afford it.
Right.
And so there's an affordability issue that we have to contend with. Second, I think, is that we have to continue to talk about ourselves as being a home, a warm home that's welcoming to students. We do a really good job at that. Professors take care of students, staff take care of students. We know everybody's name. We know where they come from. We know a lot about their personal lives.
And you meet with students
and
quite
I meet with students all the time.
Which is unusual to hear a president of a college meeting one-on-one with many of the students.
Yeah, people enter into presidencies for various reasons, but my source of strength and enthusiasm for the job is directly related to the amount of time I spend with students. They are the energy, they're the promise,
and
they're
they
our future.
give you some good feedback.
And they give me good feedback,
right.
Yes.
So, as an educator, what concerns you most about higher education in Kansas?
I want people to talk about education in a positive way. We have to talk about education in a positive way, about its capacity to grow our economy, about its capacity for it to change the lives of individuals, for it as a way of increasing the wellness in our society. Our vision statement at Bethel is to graduate students who increase human flourishing, the idea of shalom in society. And that word shalom is a biblical term, but it also means generally well-being. Well-being because you have a job, well-being because you can appreciate the arts, well-being because you can communicate with others. Those are core ideas of higher education that I think we should be talking more about.
All right, so let's play a little quick game.
Okay.
We do this once in a while on this program. I will begin a sentence and you finish it with your thoughts and tell us why.
Okay.
All right, the first one. Today education means?
Well, it means a lot of those things that I just said. It means well-being, it means intellectual rigor, it means better livelihoods, it means good communities, it means a strong economy.
All right, higher education is more than?
More than facts and figures. It's thinking, it's being in community with others, it's preparing for a job, it's understanding how to transition careers when that happens. And liberal arts education is fantastic for that. That was a long sentence, Victor.
As president of Bethel College, sometimes I dream?
Sometimes I dream of the many possibilities for the college and the good they will do for our students and the community.
My philosophy of life is?
My philosophy of life is to always continue to challenge yourself.
Learning, loving, and living mean?
They mean spending time with my family, they mean spending time with my friends, reading a good book, riding my bicycle, and participating in community.
One thing I cannot tolerate is?
Indecision.
So you make decisions rather?
Yeah, I think it's important as a leader that you make decisions.
I agree.
Because it's a decision-filled world that we live in.
Yep, you're right, you're right. The best adjectives to describe Bethel College are?
Caring and creative and serious about educating students.
The purpose of liberal arts education is?
I'm going to use a phrase that my mentor once told me. He said, the purpose of a liberal arts education is defense against indoctrination.
Explain that.
That means nobody can tell you something without your ability to think about it and ponder about it. Nobody's going to sell you a bill of goods that's fake, because you're going to have the thinking ability and the intellectual ability to understand it and question it. You know how to answer. You know how to ask the right questions.
Right. And as an ecologist, I'm concerned about
species loss in our environment. I'm also concerned about resource depletion in our environment as well.
Would global warming have any bearing?
Sure, yes. Yeah, I'm concerned about climate change as well. The list is rather long, and one way to think about it is that we live in connection with the natural world. It's easy to forget about that, right. But we're partners in the natural world, and so to litter or pollute or to continue to put carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, in a way it reduces our capacity as humans collectively.
So what impact would global warming have on the organisms that you studied as an ecologist?
Yeah, I spent my graduate school years and career as a professor studying both birds and insects. And what we're seeing in both those cases is a phenomenon, it's called desynchronizing. Both the birds who migrate and the insects who move around, they're dependent on the timing of other insects and other natural parts of the environment.
Right.
The best way to think about it is that nature is a symphony, and that music works best together and the piece works best when everybody comes in at the same time with the right instrument. And of course, what happens with climate change is you start to shift the timing of particular events. When flowers bloom, for example, which is critical for their pollinators.
Right.
So the pollinators need energy, but if the flowers are blooming at an incorrect time, it's like the string section coming in 2 beats too late.
Right.
And everything gets desynchronized. And so it's the desynchronization of the natural world, and the members of the orchestra not playing together and creating harmony. That's the concern for me. And it's a real subtlety that unless you're studying the natural world, it's very difficult to detect. But it's definitely the desynchronization of the natural world.
So, Dr. Gering, if you were not president of a college or any colleges, what would you be?
Oh, I would probably write and travel a lot, but I don't think I'd ever let the ecology and the leadership parts of my life go entirely.
What do you do in your downtime?
Kansas, since our move to Kansas, we used to live in the country in rural Missouri.
That's Kirksville.
In Kirksville, right. Yes, northeast part of the state. We lived out on rock roads, but since we've moved to Kansas, what I've really enjoyed is the biking. And so in my downtime, I cycle. Newton has fantastic cycling paths, some wonderful country roads, the Sand Creek Trail. And of course, you don't need mountains when you have a 20-mile-an-hour headwind. You can train right into the wind.
Right.
And so I've enjoyed the cycling. Newton and the North Newton communities and the Bethel community are rich in the arts as well. There's many music opportunities that are in those communities.
You know, I've observed that North Newton takes a lot of pride in Bethel College. It takes ownership of Bethel College, which is a good thing for the college.
It is.
Yes. On that note, I'd like to say thank you so much, Dr. Jon Gering.
Thank you, Victor.
President of Bethel College, for joining me at the table.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for watching this edition of One on One. If you have a question or comment about the program, or would like to recommend a guest, our email address is oneonone@kpts.org. We like hearing from you. I'm Victor Hogstrom. We hope you enjoyed the program, and I'll see you again next time.